and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. Chicago's Mexican community celebrates despite concerns over immigration enforcement.
Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty.
Looking at the state of public discourse in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, local young people weigh in.
As soon as I worked in state government, I knew I wanted to try to go to the top.
And we look at the life of former Illinois Governor Jim Edgar, who died yesterday. First off tonight, ICE isn't saying much more about a Friday afternoon shooting in which an immigration and customs enforcement agent killed an immigrant he was trying to detain. Governor J.B. Pritzker says they've asked ICE, but the agency has shared little beyond its initial statement.
We now see that ICE is unwilling to share the details of what has happened. If this were the Chicago Police Department, if this were the Sheriff's Office in Cook County, if this were Illinois State Police, you would have had a lot more information already released. But apparently ICE is unwilling to provide the transparency that I think the American public and the public here deserves.
ICE agents say Silverio Villegas Gonzalez resisted arrest and dragged an ICE agent with his car before an agent fatally shot him after a traffic stop in suburban Franklin Park. The Department of Homeland Security says Villegas Gonzalez refused agents' commands and has a history of reckless driving. Pritzker, along with U.S. Representatives Jesus Chuy Garcia and Delia Ramirez, say the shooting has caused even more widespread fear in the community. For more on this story, please visit our website. Nearly 200 people who were wrongfully convicted may receive part of a $90 million settlement with the city. Today, members of the City Council's Finance Committee unanimously agreed to the sum that would resolve 176 federal lawsuits tied to disgraced former police sergeant Ronald Watts and his team. Many of the older people said they were relieved it wouldn't cost the city even more to resolve the suits. The plaintiffs spent nearly 200 years in prison collectively after being wrongfully convicted based on what they allege was fabricated evidence gathered by Watts and other officers. Watts served 2 years in prison after being convicted in 2013 of taking bribes. The full city council is set to vote on the measure next Thursday. And for more on this story, including a statement from Watts' attorney, check out our website. CTA passengers will be able to access the opioid overdose reversing medication naloxone at 5 CTA stations as part of a 6-month pilot program intended to expand access to the medication. Advocates say easy access to the nasal spray, also known as Narcan, isn't just about reducing overdoses in the streets.
Opioids are in our homes. A senior might overtake their oxycodone. A child might get hold of a Vicodin pill that their teenage sister took when she had her wisdom teeth out. And children experiment. So now with drugs coming in from the internet, we don't know their origins. Sometimes they're laced with fentanyl. Every home should have Narcan in their first aid kit.
You just heard from Sheila Haneke, whose son died of an opioid overdose on the CTA 4 years ago. Cook County Health is providing the vending machines using $100,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds to cover the cost of installation and maintenance. The CTA stations were selected based on heightened opioid-related emergency medical responses and community input. Operation Midway Blitz is still underway in Chicago, but despite fears of enhanced immigration enforcement, the Little Village Mexican Independence Parade took place this weekend without any issues. Today, events continue for El Grito, an annual celebration marking Mexico's independence. Our Joanna Hernandez joins us now from Pilsen, where the festivities, it sounds like they're taking place. Joanna, how's it going?
Brandis, what a beautiful day for a festival like this. And like you mentioned, the festival has officially kicked off and people are trickling in. Just take a look here. The music is playing. You see people getting in. There's families. And this year, the organizers are holding the event outside St. Paul Catholic Church to create a safe space for people to come together without fear. To enhance security, they set up barricades in the area and station security personnel nearby. Now, the Mexican Culture Committee of Chicago are hosting this event. This is a celebration they host every year, but this year they say they had to find a place where people felt safe, and the church actually invited the organization to host it here. Organizers say they have several safety protocols, including a rapid response team to monitor for ICE agents. We've seen them passing out flyers. Organizers emphasize that the church serves as a sanctuary for the community, making it significant to hold El Grito here. This celebration honors the beginning of the independence movement when a brave priest cried out El Grito de Dolores, or the cry of Dolores, in Mexico, the fight to gain independence from Spain. Typically, it spans 2 days and includes various events like this one. This year, attendees can look forward to a variety of special performances. We're hearing them now in the background, including a mariachi band that will lead into the main celebration. During the event, organizers and the priest will reenact El Grito. I spoke with a parishioner from the church who expressed the importance of continuing celebrations like this one, despite the threats posed by ICE agents. She says, as a Mexican American, they celebrate the 4th of July, and people should also have a safe space to celebrate their roots.
It's so outright ugly, to the point where it's like, really, who's the criminal here? We see men coming up, or these people coming up to our brothers and sisters, and they're masked. Who is truly the criminal here? I'm just saying. You're saying you're getting all the criminals. Well, why are the percentages showing something different? Stop lying to us. You continue to lie. You keep on intimidating our brothers and sisters. They should be able to get out there. They're hardworking people. Their children should be able to get an education. You know, why are they being stopped? Why are these businesses losing so much business? Because people aren't coming out.
Brightness, I have to say that there's a different energy today. Under the circumstances, it's clear that the organizers and the attendees are keeping the spirit of this celebration alive. Pilsen, as we know, has a large Latino population with many people who have been living here for generations. We spoke to a vendor whose parents migrated here, making him a first-generation Latino. He expressed that it was important for him to be out here in support of his community.
Mexicans have been a big part of the United States growth, and you know, we work and we bleed and we sweat and we cry and we don't complain. We just go to work. That's all we know how to do. And we're also proud Americans. Not just because we're Mexican doesn't mean we hate America. We love America. If you come out, you'll see daily people sweeping dirt off of a dirt road, you know, just to try to keep it clean. And those are our people.
And Brandis, everything seems to be going smoothly. Again, this is just a live view of what's going on. We see a band playing music. It's been really nice to also see people wear their traditional Mexican wear. Of course, I had to represent and wear my traditional earrings. As you know, I am a Mexican American, and events like this are important to honor my family who migrated here from Mexico. And of course, what a beautiful way to celebrate and kick off also Hispanic Heritage Month. Again, this event is going on till 10 o'clock, and there's going to be a variety of musicians and, of course, mariachi, the best part. We're live from Pilsen. I'm Joanna Hernandez. I send it back to you.
All right, Joanna, thank you so much. Have fun. Up next, after another killing of a political figure, young people weigh in on the country's polarized discourse.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Jim and Kay Mabee family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
The assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has spurred a public discourse on political violence and the rhetoric that perpetuates it. Shortly after Kirk was fatally shot on the Utah Valley University campus last week, President Donald Trump blamed the, quote, radical left for the uptick in violence. Kirk was honored with a memorial service at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. yesterday and at Saturday's anti-immigrant rally in London. Meanwhile, some celebrated Kirk's death while others showed indifference to the controversial figure. Joining us to discuss the way we talk with each other about politics are Maya Roman, a senior at DePaul University, Sydney Richardson, deputy editor of the Columbia Chronicle at Columbia College Chicago, And via Zoom, Braden Gonzalez, Vice President of College Republicans at Illinois State University. Thanks to the three of you for fitting us into your busy student schedules. Braden Gonzalez, I want to start with you first, please. You admired Kirk. You even had the opportunity to shake his hand once. What was it about him that drew you to him?
Yeah, what drew me to Charlie Kirk is that, you know, he represented something to us. So in the young conservative movement, there's kind of this hopeful idea that all we need to do to save America is just have some conversations. And to some people, like, you know, young conservatives, they love debating. I love debating with my fellow students. And he just kind of represented this idea that America could change for the better. And that, I hope it's not true, but it almost seems like it died with him, that kind of optimistic idea that it was going to be easy at least.
Why do you think he was able to draw such a large following? I mean, it's one thing for, you know, for a few people to be sort of enamored with his message and what they believe him to represent, but he was able to amass a decent sized following of young people, young men especially. What do you think that was about?
I feel like no one else was doing it. I feel like, yeah, no one was really like doing what Charlie Kirk was doing. And honestly, for the longest time, like young conservatives were really disengaged. But like when I was growing up as a conservative, like as a kid, like the Change My Mind tabletops was something like legendary. You know, it's like it's scary to talk it's scary to talk about your opinions like on a college campus, especially when you're in such a small minority. But like Charlie Kirk kind of broke that taboo. And so that's why I think he got so big. He was like the first one to do it, and he was really good at it. You know, he was so many people's heroes who I knew, and he will be dearly missed.
Maya, what would you say, what was your reaction maybe from some of your peers when you initially heard that Kirk had been killed?
Yeah, the emotions were very conflicted. A lot of my friends are part of the marginalized communities that Charlie tend to target with a lot of his rhetoric. So there's been a lot of conflicted emotions around it. I would say it would lean more towards relief that that harm isn't continued as a cycle.
He often preached, you know, free speech and was known for debating people across the political aisle. Sydney, what does free speech mean to you, especially as a student journalist?
Yeah, so free speech is, of course, very important to me, and not just like as a student journalist, but as an American in general. I mean, but part of free speech is that naturally people aren't always going to agree, but also people are often going to feel hurt by others' expressions of free speech. So just around my campus, which does not really have a conservative presence at Columbia College, I've seen a lot of, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's killing, a lot of, you know, condemnation of his messages. And that, I feel, if we're saying that Charlie Kirk left behind a legacy of free speech, that I feel is an extension of it for people to criticize his message after he's gone.
What would you say that Charlie Kirk's work was an example of free speech?
Sure, but I feel like just as much as his work is an expression of his free speech and his conservative voice, people's responses to his work, you know, the very people that step up to the microphone to debate him, they are also expressing their free speech. And that, I feel like, seeing as he just died in such like a violent way, that I see a lot of people going back and forth on, like, is it okay for someone else to condemn someone that died, you know?
I mean, and I guess, like, you know, the question, and I want to be clear, Maya, for example, we can condemn, or people can condemn what Charlie Kirk said, but at the same time, condemn the way in which he died.
Absolutely, and I think empathy is one of our largest strengths as humanity, you know, and that's how we move towards our goals, and that's how we're able to work together. However, it's also, it's not, you can't ignore the cycle that harm creates, and you can't ignore the fact that hate breeds hate. And there is a lot of hate that he created and a lot of hate that he perpetuated.
Braden, what do you say to that? What are your thoughts on that? You admired him.
I would say I'd say that's wrong. Charlie Kirk, by many ways, was the moderate. And, the first thing he had in mind when he debated with people is that he wanted to change people's mind to help them. And so I don't think he created this cycle of hate. And, I really noticed that at his prayer vigil. So after he had passed, the day after, there was a vigil held. And I was kind of afraid because, the first hearing the news, I was really angry. But, I had to reflect, I had to pray. Ideally, like, the shooter did an awful thing, and I prayed for his salvation, and I prayed for the salvation of Kirk. But, like, when I went to his vigil, my concerns were erased because they were just like, the people were just so peace-loving. And that's what actually broke my heart. That's what really bothers me about Charlie Kirk's death. It's not that a father and a husband is dead, but it's that people are hurt. People who are so peaceful and loving, and it was just like this idea that, like, he stipulated hate's like, no, actually, he was the moderate, and now the goalpost has been moved.
Well, Kirk's assassination, it follows other murders, of course. The Minnesota House of Representatives Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark Hortman, that was in June of this year. The arson at Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion while he and his family slept inside. That was in April. 2 assassination attempts that we know, of course, against President Donald Trump. One was notably in Butler, Pennsylvania, June of last year, a few months before several months before the election, where it injured his ear. Braden, to what do you attribute the rise of political violence? Because it sounds like this is happening against people who are members of both parties.
I think we stopped dignifying people as human beings. All of us are made in the likeness of God, whittled in God's palm. And we don't treat human beings like that anymore because there's just this kind of sadistic culture that promotes all these, like, awful things. And it just creates people who are just apathetic when it comes to human life. And that's where all these political killings are coming from. It's just from societal decay.
Maya, same question to you. To what do you attribute the rise in political violence?
I honestly kind of agree with our guests here. We have not been able to really view empathy in the same way anymore. And honestly, no one should ever be dying of gun violence in the United States. And no one should be dying of political violence in general. Free speech should be protected within America. And we're just seeing this lack of empathy across both sides. But it's also very hard to have empathy when people don't view you as human beings and they don't believe that you should have rights or the same rights as others. So that can make conversation very hard, and it can make it hard to foster any kind of communication.
Of course, since the assassination, as we've said, there's been a lot of finger pointing as to who's to blame, the rhetoric from the left or the right. Here's what the local conservative group Chicago Flips Red had to say in reaction to Kirk's death.
When you shot Charlie Kirk and killed him, some of the liberals was happy. Now, this is an act of war. We at war with the left. We at war with J.B. Pritzker. We at war with Brandon Johnson. And if we have to fight back against the liberals, then so be it. We will fight until nobody cannot fight no more.
Sydney, how would you describe the political discourse on your campus? Does it tend to skew one way or the other? You mentioned that at Columbia, not a lot of conservatives.
Yeah, it's just not really in Columbia's DNA. It's an urban arts school, so you can kind of make some generalizations about it. But also, we have 40% of our students identify as LGBTQ. We are a Hispanic serving institution. About 28% of our students are Hispanic. And about 55% are BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. So those different marginalized identities coming together has sort of shaped people's social and political perspectives, I think. And so
tends to skew a little bit to the left,
absolutely.
It sounds like. Before we run out of time, Maya, same question to you. How would you describe the political discourse on your campus?
Political discourse is always a thing, but around this topic in particular, DePaul skews left for sure.
Does it ever get heated between people who disagree? And does that ever land on social media?
I would say yes, absolutely. We saw that with the encampment that occurred on DePaul's University as well a couple years ago, or a year ago at this point. So it can absolutely get heated, but the university does its best to try and hold space for that discourse.
Braden, we've got about 30 seconds left. How would you describe the political discourse on your campus?
Obviously very liberal. Yeah, I mean, we're a state university in a sort of conservative area, so it's usually very left. But honestly, it doesn't get too bad. Nothing too radical because of that. But yeah.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Thanks to the three of you for joining us for this conversation. Braden Gonzalez, Sydney Richardson, and Maya Ruman. Thank you. Up next, remembering the late Illinois Governor Jim Edgar. Former Illinois Governor Jim Edgar died yesterday in Springfield. The popular Republican served as governor from 1991 to 1999 after having previously been a state representative and Illinois Secretary of State. Edgar was a moderate Republican who favored abortion rights and in recent years spoke out against President Donald Trump endorsing Kamala Harris in 2024. In 1997, the day after he announced he would not seek a third term or, as many has expected, run for the U.S. Senate, Edgar appeared on Chicago Tonight to talk about it all. It was a decision that even his wife had been skeptical he'd be able to make.
I think what Brenda felt was that she just didn't think in the end that I could walk away from what's been my life for 30 years. And I wasn't sure if I could either. I mean, throughout my thought process, I knew it's easy to say this is what you're going to do, but to actually do it. And I have to say that it was extremely difficult for me to actually get the words out. As I tried to practice that speech that had me not running again, it was emotionally a very difficult thing to do.
And the other thing you said in your news conference yesterday was that you plotted your career long ago, and you must have had some sensibility then that if you got to be apparently you wanted to be governor. If you got to be governor and you got 2 terms, you had a sense even then that that's what it would be. How long ago did you do that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess as soon as I worked in state government, I knew I wanted to try to go to the top. I think you do that in any profession, and in my profession, it's governor if you're at the state level. I know as Secretary of State, I thought that 2 terms would be enough as governor because I just felt that you could begin to kind of tire the job or have a burnout, or people could get tired of you. And I have to say that as I kind of looked at what we had done, while we didn't get everything done, we're still hopefully to do something on school financing before the 16 months is up. But I felt good about what we'd accomplished. And also, after I went through the surgery on my heart 3 years ago, I kind of realized there's other things in life that I'd probably like to do or have some time to see. And I felt this was the right time. Last night I was watching a program, TV news station in downstate Illinois, and they interviewed my high school football coach. And he said, when Jim was a senior in high school, he was driven then. And it kind of hit me that I was driven. I mean, I've always been driven. I've been driven in politics. And I think after that surgery and the fact that I had attained the governorship and for 2 terms, that I don't think maybe that drive was as great as it had been. And I really felt at that point then maybe you shouldn't continue going into another campaign, looking at another 4 years. You've got to have a certain drive, whether to run for governor or the U.S. Senate.
You look great, and as you said yesterday, the cholesterol numbers are about as picture perfect as you can get. But that surgery is a sobering thing, isn't it? That's not a little thing.
No, because I had always thought as most people, kind of immortal. I mean, my health had always been good before I had the heart trouble, starting about 5 years ago. So that really caught me completely off guard. But after the surgery, as I said, it just made me realize there's probably some other things in life that I'd want to be sure to do. Not that I didn't enjoy being governor, and I've enjoyed it immensely. But there are other things before my time's up I want to do. Just little things. Our grandson is now about 2.5. They've moved away. I want to make sure I can have some time to get out and see him as he grows up, and hopefully I'll have other grandkids as well. There are those kind of things that to me are far more important than kind of that drive I had to get to the top of the political heap.
And true to his word, Edgar left office at age 52 and never re-entered politics. Edgar's popularity can be seen in his 1994 re-election when he won 101 of Illinois' 102 counties, including Cook. Jim Edgar died yesterday, reportedly due to an adverse reaction to pancreatic cancer treatment. He was 79. And that is our show for this Monday night. Be sure to sign up for our free email newsletter, The Daily Chicagoan, at WTTW.com/newsletter. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm that gives back to the community through law and philanthropy.